What is the best psychological trick, Before we start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. I wish you a pleasant viewing experience. Story 1. When working on group projects, if you want someone else in the group to do something, instead of saying, "Can you do this?" simply say, "Can you start on this?" This makes it sound like less work and they will be more willing to do it. Halfway through, tell them, "Good job, keep going," and they'll probably finish it. Very useful for lab reports. Story 2. I can get an auditorium full of high school or university students to almost immediately quiet down without uttering a word. I just start mouthing like I'm talking and gesturing without making a sound. It has never failed to bring 500 people to absolute silence within 30 seconds as everyone tries to figure out what I'm doing. When you can hear a pin drop, I cease my antics, pick up the mic, say thanks, and get on with the meeting, ceremony, presentation, etc. Story 3. If you act really excited every time you see someone, they will eventually start to get really excited every time they see you, without realizing why. Story 4. Simple positive reinforcement works wonders, and I see people ignore it all the time. If somebody does something you like, find a way to reward it. I don't mean give them something, just say something nice. Touch them lightly, smile at them, whatever. Most of you probably think this is obvious and natural, but I see people all the time neglect to show any sort of appreciation for favors and the like. There's a reason you were taught to say, "Thank you, people." Answer: I'm currently in training for a new job. My trainers act like jerks. Condescending, no patience, demanding, discouraging, and only focusing on the negative aspects of my performance. I feel like shoot and like I'm doing horrible. However, I'm ahead of schedule, and they're moving me along at a faster pace than normal trainees. But all they've done is make me dislike the place, and I'm looking for a new job and plan on leaving as soon as possible. 2 other trainees have already quit. Story 5. I worked in fast food. My manager told me to always ask if they wanted a shake instead of a soda for one more or something. But he said, always nod yes when you're asking. It was crazy how it actually worked. I would go a day without nodding, and then a day with. People fall for the suggestion of it all, so now I always nod yes when I suggest things I want. Answer: this can be flipped around to be a different kind of psychological trick. People also use this when they're trying to get you to believe what they're saying or putting a certain spin on some new information. Some people have used the head nod so much it becomes second nature to them, and they aren't too aware whether they are or aren't doing it. So if you see them doing it only at certain moments, it can be a tell. Whatever they're saying at that moment, they aren't confident you're going to believe them, so they give it an extra boost with the head nod. Story 6. Not sure if this counts as a psychological trick, but have you ever been going about your day and then suddenly had that horrible thought cross your mind? NBSP. Did I remember to turn the stove off? Did I lock my front door? Did I close my garage? Of course you have. For me, it's closing the garage door. I've come home on more than one occasion to find my garage wide open, all of my possessions available for someone to just walk up to and take. Thankfully, I was never robbed. Then I read about this technique called pointing and calling that Japanese train station workers use to reduce the number of errors they make. It involves pointing to the thing you are checking and saying something out loud. So when I back out of the garage, I press the button on the remote, watch it close completely, then I point to it and say garage closed. This does 2 things. It helps solidify the memory of watching the garage door close, so I won't have to remember later on if I remembered to close it. I've heard of some people even taking pictures of the door closed so that they can look at their phone later and verify that they did it. Pointing and calling is sufficient for me. Secondly, it helps in that very moment by making you double-check, pointing, and triple-check, calling, so that you won't make a mistake in the first place. Answer: I took the train in Tokyo daily for 4 years and never once understood why the station staff would point and speak out things constantly. Thanks for this comment. Time to start using that technique myself. I already talk to myself frequently, much to the dismay and confusion of my wife, her family, neighbors, and colleagues. Pointing and calling won't draw any extra eyes. Story 7. One I use all the time in meetings to get my own way is to say, well, I really like insert highest ranking person in the room. Here's idea that we should do my idea. It just makes the most sense. Half the people will immediately agree with you because they're afraid of criticizing the boss's idea. And I've yet to meet a manager who won't take credit for an idea everyone likes. Best used sparingly towards the end of long meetings. Story 8. The puppeteer game. If you're in someone's view, but they aren't looking at you, start copying their movements. After a few minutes, you can then initiate movements and they'll copy you. Cross or uncross legs, play with hair, etc. Story 9. Whenever I feel like someone doesn't like me in the office, I will always ask them questions that I already know the answers to. They will explain them to me and I'll say thanks and smile. It's not much, but I swear they change how they feel about me. Answer. Showing someone you think they have worth can do wonders for how they treat you, but also for their overall demeanor in the office. They added someone to my team who initially drove me nuts because they seemed to need constant validation and asked the same question a million times, and I didn't want to babysit someone twice my age. But instead of run away with it, I thankfully considered I could go on the offensive. All I did was ask them questions and then thank them for helping make my job easier, because they could give me knowledge without me having to Google forever. Total turnaround on their part, and now everything is fine. You have to be able to understand what makes the person you are working with tick, and then work with it. Another coworker doesn't need validation, but does get frustrated. I started making jokes and laughing with them about the frustrating bits, and they've seemed a lot more chill since. A lot of the time, people just need to feel heard and appreciated. Story 10. Working with kids, if I can't get them to do something, I'll give them the choice to do it themselves or have me help them. Either way, the task gets done without them realizing I still got them to do what I wanted them to. Answer. My trick for working with kids is to settle things over rock, paper, scissors. It distracts them from the initial issue and gives them a clear outcome to accept. Edit. I'm not playing in the game. Say two kids are arguing over whose turn it is to take a free kick in a soccer game. After they verse each other in rock, paper, scissors, it doesn't matter what their previous arguments were. They agreed to the rock, paper, scissors from which there was an undisputed victor. Story 11. Smile when you walk around the office yard, whatever. People either think you are some kind of maniac and leave you alone, good, or they smile back and make your day. Also, I don't know if that's true, but I heard that if you smile, your brain sets different hormones free that make you feel better. I definitely feel better just smiling, walking around. If it's placebo, I don't care. My best example is how I met my boss when he just came out of a meeting, which must have went horribly. He was really angry. I just stood my ground and kept smiling while simply greeting him. He loosened up visibly and greeted me back without a single bit of anger in his voice. I guess after having to deal with tough asshats for hours on end, he was glad to see someone that doesn't want to take it out on him and was just being genuinely friendly. After all, your boss is just a human being too. I digress, but once I have realized and accepted that it stopped being scary talking to superiors. Answer. One day I went to the bank high as fudge to cash my check for rent. I was bumbling along in my head, just kind of smiling and humming to myself when I was greeted by the teller. By the end of the transaction, I realized pretty much the whole staff was crowded around me, and I started getting kind of paranoid, like, WTF is going on? Even though they were all being super friendly. At some point, I said something about it to which they responded with, "We just had a really loud and difficult customer, and you are just so refreshing right now. Happened maybe 8 months ago, and I'm still glowing from it. Made my fucking year." Turns out people like to see other people happy. Story 12. The power of silence in conversation. Get comfortable with pauses in conversation and try to let the other person struggle to come up with ways to fill the void. It throws most people off their game and puts you in charge of the conversation. Answer. It throws most people off their game and puts you in charge of the conversation. Exactly. Which is why you shouldn't get too used to do this, lest you want to be regarded as a 247 douchebag. Doing this is a way of aggressively challenge another when there never was no need to do so, at least in my case. I have a friend who does this, and he does it regularly. It pisses me off and is unnecessary. We are in a friendly environment. There is no need to underlyingly challenge me all the time. It's also very confusing. I don't know why he does it as much as he does, and I can only guess. Story 13. I don't know if this is really psychological, but it's interesting. If you ever see someone check their watch phone for the time, wait a few seconds and ask them what time it is. 9 times out of 10, they will check again. Answer. I've always seen this as the brain seeing the time and having one of two reactions. Something should change soon, or nothing needs to change. If you have an appointment and you look at a clock, your brain will react and remember more because you want to be on time. If you have nowhere to be and you look, your brain says, "Yup, still good," and forgets the useless info BQS. Why remember what you don't have to when there's shoot-like breathing to worry about? Story 14. Confidently showing someone something. You can get through many ticket barriers by just showing an old or wrong ticket with a smile. Answer. Yep. Once I tried to buy a drink at a bar, and I gave my ID when asked. The guy said, "I can't accept this." I said, "Sure you can," in a confident and upbeat tone. I could tell he wasn't convinced, but he sold me the drink anyway. Admittedly, the ID was real and perfectly legal. Due to my immigration status, it has a disclosure on the card indicating that it cannot be used for voting or public benefit purposes. Story 15. Saying but you're free to refuse tends to get the result you want when asking someone to do something. I actually saw this here on Reddit months ago and tried it during my work days. I certainly got what I wanted because of it. Story 16. If you want to walk through a crowd quickly, just stare straight ahead and don't falter or look at the floor. People will go out of their way to avoid you. Story 17. If in a situation where you are trying to get someone to like you as a person, such as an interview, date, etc., mimic their body language. For example, they have one hand in their lap and the other hand is under their chin with their head resting on it. With their legs crossed, you may sit the same way they are positioned. It subliminally causes them to like you better. Note, this will not work unless you are also making good conversation with them and appearing to be genuinely interested in what they have to say to you. Answer, it works the other way too, since you oftentimes do it subconsciously. In a room with a large amount of people, consider your body language and quickly glance around to see who might be subconsciously mimicking it. Notice someone with the same body language and slowly change it to see if they also change it. You might be surprised to see them quickly following suit. You might also find yourself copying someone you are fond of. There are unspoken conversations going on all around us. Story 18. When meeting someone new, when you first make eye contact, quickly raise your eyebrows and let your face fall back to a relaxed smile. It kicks their subconscious into the idea that they already know you and can trust you. It takes a bit of practice though, as timing is the difference between genuine and creepy body language. Story 19. The classic, oh, I've heard that before, it must be right, when they don't remember they had heard it from the same person. Story 20. If you want an answer to something, make an incorrect statement about it rather than asking a question. People love to correct inaccuracies. Story 21. I usually only use this on those pesky types of people. If they ask me to do something I don't want to do, I just say no or sorry, I can't, and just leave it at that, instead of launching into a big explanation of why I can't do that. If you explain, they have a tendency to try to convince you to still do it, because oftentimes explanations make it seem like it's open to debate, but a good sorry, I can't just leaves it at that and doesn't give much leeway for negotiation. Plus, usually most people expect an explanation, so it throws them off balance when you don't give them one. I read this in an old magazine once and gave it a try. Seems to work. Of course, use sense. It's more for the jerk that wants to borrow 50.00 when they never pay back the 20.00 they owe you from before, but not a good thing to use if your boss asks you to do a project or something. Story 22. I learned this in Spain because the city I was living in at the time had a lot of people doing this. When you are walking and someone is coming towards you, just look the other way. Most of the time, the other person will move instinctually. I have tried this in crowds and it usually works unless the other person is not paying attention. Story 23. When playing rock, paper, scissors, ask the person what color shirt they're wearing right before you play. Most of the time, they'll choose scissors subconsciously. Answer. Just tried this on my friend and it went pretty much like this. Me. Hey, what color's your shirt? Friend. What shirt? Me. The shirt you're wearing. Friend. What do you mean? Me. What color is it? Friend. Looks at shirt. I don't get it. Why are you asking the color of my shirt? You can fudge see it. Me. Just say what color it is. Friend. Fine, it's black. Happy? Me. Let's do rock, paper, scissors. Friend. For what? Me. Just because. Friend. Because why? Me. I want to try something. Just do it. Friend. Sighs. Okay, whatever. Throws paper. Me. Throws rock. Oh, friend. So what the fudge did I win? It didn't go well. Story 24. If you're trying to go through a crowd of people and nobody's moving, start dry heaving like you're about to throw up. Everyone will walk away from you. Story 25. When someone does me a favor at work, I thank them and note the extra effort in an email and copy their boss. Now when something goes sideways, it's easy to get the extra help from people because they know the effort will be appreciated and noted. So easy, so often not done. Story 26. If someone is being a shoot to you, tell them they have something in their teeth. They'll obsess about it, at least for a minute, and you have the upper hand again. Story 27. When you want people to behave a certain way with you, just praise them when they do it. Let's say Larry just got you a fork because he noticed you needed one, even though you didn't ask. Then you say something like, "Thanks, Larry, you're very considerate." Larry will try to be more considerate when you're around him. I've tried this and it works most of the time. Story 28. I recently discovered and started applying the 5-second rule. It's a meta-psychology trick that short-circuits the wave of emotional logic that will follow the decision to do something you don't really want to do. For example, I need to work out tonight, but instead I am having some Ben Jerry's. Now that I have identified that I'm not doing what will ultimately make me happier, I can count backwards from 5 and short-circuit the excuses to get up physically and move in a direction towards my goal. There is a great segment on TED Talks by Mel Robbins about using this trick to stop sleeping in by hitting the snooze button. Story 29. If I want to see if someone I'm interested in is staring at me when I'm not looking, I'll yawn and then check to see if they do too. Story 30. Never ask yes or no questions if you're trying to get someone to do something. For work, if I need to schedule a meeting with a client, I never ask, do you want to meet on Tuesday? It's always, I have time on Tuesday at 10 a.m. or 1 p.m. What works better for you? This can work for your kids too if you're trying to get them to do chores. Do you want to take the garbage out or clean the living room? Never do you want to take the garbage out? There's something about giving them the power to choose that works. Story 31. I force myself not to cross my arms or legs when I start to feel nervous. I always try to use open and confident body language to feel more confident. Story 32. I take public notes in project meetings I attend or lead so that everyone can see what we've talked about. I also publicly write down summarized to-dos for the next meeting and write names next to them. For example, we talked about how we are going to handle X. Jeremy said he would follow up with John. When we start the next meeting, I copy this list to the new meeting agenda to talk about. Projects get done like they've never gotten done before. The psychological part is that public goal setting increases likelihood of goal completion. And in my case, even when the person doesn't really want to do the task. Story 33. Start handing random stuff to someone you're having a conversation with. By the end of the conversation, they realize how much crap they're holding and have no idea how it happened. Story 34. If you really want an answer, instead of asking a question, just pose an answer you already know is wrong. This works especially well with arrogant people who rarely like answering questions, but love showing everyone how smart they are. Mr. Senior Developer, how do I make an animated busy loader? Dude, you have Google, just go find it. Mr. Senior Developer, I heard that the best way to make an animated busy loader is to use an animated .jusavike. No way. That uses unnecessary bandwidth, causes you to have additional files to maintain in your assets, and is low quality. All modern browsers support CSS3 animation and can do this type of loader natively without additional clunky mechanisms or files to maintain. In BTW, it's pronounced give. Story 35. If you're practicing a physical game like bowling, try visualizing the entire motion a few times in your mind before you do it. See yourself bowling the ball, and imagine the ball releasing from your hand and rolling down to knock down all the pins for a strike. Once you have that full vision clear in your mind, go ahead and bowl the ball as you have imagined. Apparently, gymnasts use the technique to learn new moves. Story 36. When walking somewhere with someone, pick something up. Bonus points if it's something as random as a rock or a leaf. Play with it while the conversation with your co-walker goes on. Amidst the conversation, without making any deal out of it and without stopping the conversation, hand them said thing. They'll keep it. Story 37. If someone has hiccups, just tell them to try to hiccup and they can't, and it'll end it. Also works on self. Story 38. I talk to cows. I don't know what I'm saying, but I always get a response. Every single time, 50 years now. One time I was jogging down a road next to a pasture and started my cow speak. Within seconds, I had a whole herd of cows jogging along with me on their side of the fence. When they came to the end of their pasture, they huddled in this forlorn-looking group, mooed and even bellowed at me like I was their last friend to leave them as I continued my jog. Apparently, I have a very convincing mo-o. Maybe it's not really cow psychology, just good language skills. Story 39. Work in a cinema. Am ranked 11th in upselling in the entire company, though coworker of mine is number 10. One trick most people do to try and get a customer to buy a large item is to always ask, is that a large? Rather than, what size would you like? Or is that regular or a large? People dislike saying no and want to say yes, just out of politeness. I, however, always just ask in a questioning tone. Large? Comes out like a command but is still a suggestion. Seems to work better than the standard tactic. Story 40. When having a persuasive argument with someone, you can always get yourself out of a pickle by asking them to clarify what they mean. For example, if they ask you a difficult question, try asking what they mean by the words they used. This dissects it down to really easy talking points and is completely inoffensive. If they make a statement to you, ask what they mean by it. Most of the time, people jump at the opportunity to explain their ideas and in doing so analyze them to such an extent that they start to discover the flaws in their own line of thinking. It's a beautiful thing to watch. Answer, I'm the kind of person that always way overanalyzes everything I think. So usually when I say something out loud as an opinion, I've found ways to rationalize it and argue against anything that doesn't immediately make sense to someone that hasn't thought of it. This definitely isn't all the time. I say some stupid shit on occasion. Because of this, it always surprises me how often that this works. From correcting misinformation that customers spew when buying something, to teaching someone that, no, the Bible is not 100 factual. Story 41. In golf, I like to ask my opponents, do you inhale or exhale when you swing? And it fudge with their head. Story 42. This one always worked for me, either with the popular group I was working with or if I want attention from someone specific. Just stop trying. Don't give them attention. When you see them, act aloof. If this person has become accustomed to people always giving them attention and then you stop doing that, they will go out of their way to get your attention back on them again, and then you have the upper hand. Story 43. Everyone is happier after a high five. Office a little somber today? Walk around giving out high fives. Instant joviality. Then use some hand sanitizer, because hands are filthy. Story 44. The quickest way to get your husband-boyfriend to finally do that thing you've been nagging him to do for 6 months is to start doing it yourself and fudge it up spectacularly. Insist that you can do it yourself without help while asking, is that thingy is supposed to come off the other thingy, or is it broken? Story 45. If someone says something mean, act like it got to you, even if it didn't. They almost always regret it, even if they don't show it. This assumes they're not in jerk-hole at the core, of course. Then you just need to get away from them. Story 46. Completely ignoring personal attacks to calm down a situation. Customer immediately upon me answering the phone. You stupid motherfuckers, screwed this shoot up again. I want to talk to the president. Don't give me any more fudge excuses. Blah, blah, blah. I reopen as if he just said hello in the most friendly way. Okay, let's take a look at your account and I'll get this fixed. Can I have your account number, please? Although my ultimate favorite is making the non-committal sound in response to someone saying something crazy they want you to agree with. Like the customer says, you know you're fudge stealing my money, me. They hear the sound as agreement, or at least as not disagreeing, and they move on to their next sentence. When in fact all I did was move the conversation another step forward. Story 47. I like to condition people, usually friends. It sounds evil, but really it's mostly innocent. With one roommate, I would light a specific candle every time we had a cigarette together for a month. After that month, every time I lit the candle, she would want a ciggy. I also like to condition people with candy. In a restaurant I worked at, I would take gummy bears in for everyone on each shift. I stopped after a month, and people would get really angry that they didn't get their gummy bears. Answer, I did this too, but slowly got all of my friends to pick up painting and arts. I got tired of being the only one doing productive things, so anytime we would hang out, I would talk about painting and art, and I'd pack a bowl to smoke. I'm generally the one with plant substance to share. If they talked about TV or whatever, I wouldn't pack one. After, while I stopped packing bowls and they started painting and playing music. It was glorious, and now when we hang out, instead of smoking pot all day, we create weird shoot and share art. Story 48. I work in a restaurant. People often complain that the air conditioning is too cold. I tell them, oh, I'm sorry, I'll go see what I can do. Return and tell them, the manager bumped it up a few degrees. Does it feel any better? 9 times out of 10, they say yes, it's better. It's a giant sports bar. It's been 4 minutes. There's no way you'd be able to tell a difference. Also, I never told a manager, and we never adjusted the temp at all. Power of suggestion. Story 49. Any sort of customer service call you make, particularly if you're angry or frustrated, when they answer, remember or write down their name, then use their name during the rest of the call. Now couch the tone of the problem in a friendly tone of voice. I've got this problem I hope you can help me with. You guys being the experts on this stuff. So instead of being angry, customers always right attitude, making the rep go on the defensive. You instead make them feel that you are coming to them for what you expect as their expert knowledge. So describe your issue and throw on there a comment like, I might have done something wrong, and again appeal to their ego, building them up as the one with the know-how. Again, using their name occasionally. I don't feel this is manipulative. People want to be respected. They want to appear confident, and they want to be helpful. Set the stage for them to deal with you that way. I have had customer service reps bend over backwards to help resolve my issue. I've gotten replacement products next day shipping, refunds, and credits, And one rep even tell their manager this customer needs manager authorization to fix the problem now. Otherwise, if you call customer reps and light into them with an angry tone and accusatory manner, they're going to dig in their heels and give you the crappy service they think you deserve. Story 50. If you are in a bar or at a social gathering, hold your drink down by your waist instead of up by your chest. You will look more confident and alpha in the group. Story 51. I work with kids, and whenever they say they can't think of something or can't explain something, I do this. Basically, just pause for a second, then ask, well, if you could explain it, think of it or whatever, what would it be? Or something along those lines. Half the time they sit and think for a moment and then come up with an answer. Story 52. This was a highly updated LPT some months back. I have a lot of social anxiety and am awkward AF sometimes, so I've got a lot of invasive memories about embarrassing shoot I've done over the years. Do you remember that time I left my dildos out on the bathroom counter when maintenance came to do the annual pest spray? Literally yesterday? I sure do. The trick is simple. When I have an embarrassing memory, I play the Seinfeld theme over the memory, essentially reimagining situation as an awkward yet endearing moment out of Seinfeld. Elaine would have definitely left her dildos out on the counter. The entire episode would have been dedicated to her trying to restore her dignity with her app super, who actually doesn't give a fudge in the least. This also works with the theme from Frasier to some extent. Daphne is absolutely the kind of chick who would leave dildos out on accident. Envisioning my memories in this way helps to remind me that everyone fudge up in glorious ways, and either I can laugh about it and move on, or dwell on it and beat myself up for no reason. Story 53. If you want someone to do a larger task for you, preface that by asking them to do something smaller, like, can you pass me that glass of water, please? It makes them more agreeable. Story 54. OP, I really want to rank you for this post. I've fallen in love in psychology as a hobby for the past 4 years, so I love reading the comments. My trick is as simple as learn the body language of humans. I've found out that many people are bad at reading others, which sometimes damages their relationships, both social and professional. Reading body language is as easy as to learn your first language. You just have to look at people's faces, the way they walk, the way they talk, etc. Most often, their body is a reflection of their mind, so you can try to copy them if you want to learn faster. Again, same as learning to talk. Of course, reading a book beforehand would speed up the process, but the books I've read rarely tell something new. The most important thing they will tell you is to look at people in crowded places, like for example, an airport. That's the most interesting thing you can do if you arrive early in a place, Have fun, guys. Story 55. Stare at someone's ear instead of making eye contact and act completely normal. It almost always trips them up because they think there's something wrong with their face. Not sure if this counts as a psychological trick, but it for sure fudge with people. Edit. During conversation, don't just randomly stare at people's ears. Story 56. When I need my daughter to get her jerk in the shower bath, I tell her that I'm going to beat her to the bathroom and start running there. Works every time, usually with her screaming, "No, Daddy, that's my bath." I usually let her win the race, if anyone cares. Story 57. When standing in a circle of people, look at where people's feet are pointed. That's who they're the most interested in. Story 58. When someone is being indecisive, I'll tell them I'll flip a coin. I then flip it, catch it in my fist, and then ask them, which one were you hoping for more while it was in the air? I put the coin in my pocket and then tell them to go with that option and never reveal what the coin landed on. Story 59. Step 1. Get a water bottle. A glass of water would do in a pinch, but I find the bottle more effective. Step 2. Need to pee. Step 3. Go to the bathroom and have a seat. Settle in and prepare to do your business. Step 4. While your body is expelling the extra fluids, start drinking the water from your water bottle. Should it all work out right, you will feel like the water is simply falling out from you, in one end and out the other instantaneously. Enjoy. Story 60. The best way to make someone not like doing something they once loved is to reward them for doing it and then cut them off from the reward. Story 61. If you can see someone on the street in the corner of your vision who's about to approach you to ask for change, try to sell you something, etc., try this. Pretend as if there's something caught in your teeth and use your nail to work it out. Use this quick opportunity to show as much canine as you can while contorting your face into a very angry and animalistic expression. They'll immediately back off. 75 of the time. Story 62. I'm fascinated by the placebo effect, and when my friends and I were fairly new to drinking adult beverage, I saw it in action. Had a mild house party while my dad was away and needed to get tidied up before he got home. The only people left to help were two hungover friends, one of which was dying from their hangover and couldn't possibly help. I told her that my dad had some Resolve hangover cure that would perk her right up. Found the Resolve packet with only one sachet left, and I didn't want to take it for fear it would be noticed. Instead, I added a small amount of leftover Sprite to a small glass and started to stir it. Took it up to her, still stirring, and said she had to knock it back before it settled. She did, and 15 minutes later was up and helping extolling the virtues of Resolve. She bought it frequently after that. You're welcome, Resolve. Story 63. Something really useful my wife learned in therapy for her PTSD. When someone is having a panic attack, ask them to describe an object they can see in as much detail as possible. The act of concentrating on this task helps them focus on something besides their fear. I've helped my wife calm down from a lot of attacks with this, most recently on Thursday evening. Story 64. When someone comes to work on anything for you, offer them a glass of tea or lemonade or anything. Even though it's trivial and super cheap compared to whatever they're doing for you, and even if they don't take it, don't count on this LOL. Actually have whatever you're offering. Just offering creates a positive perception of you that leads to better service, like going the extra mile to solve a difficult problem with whatever they're trying to fix, or putting more effort into ensuring it stays fixed, or just being more honest about the situation you're in, such as if the company line says X and the truth is Y. Story 65. Next time you're having a conversation with someone, while they are talking, pick something up and hand it to them. Anything. A napkin, a cup, your phone. While they're in the middle of making a point, they won't notice that they've reflexively taken whatever you handed them. I used to use this trick to get my friends to hold textbooks and drinks for me without having to ask. Story 66. If you're home alone feeling bored and lonely, self-care. 910 times your roommates will come home right before you finish. Story 67. Worked at a gas station and was trained that getting the customer to open the hood was critical because then you have a captive upsell opportunity. That's why people don't want to open the hood. So what can you say to convince them otherwise? I would never have guessed this would work so well, but the trick is to simply point at the hood release and say, pop your hood. Story 68. A combination of honesty and praise. It's a trick that I have to use from time to time with my plumbers. One of our buildings is really old. Things weren't built right to start with, and previous owners didn't fix things right either. And once in a while, we have the opportunity or need to fix some of it. I've walked into a job site with a dozen plumbers covered, quite literally, in mud and chute, and they'll say something like, "This is eliminate us." And I just reply with, "If this were easy, I would have called someone else." I acknowledge that I know what I've asked them to do is hard, but that I think they're the only ones capable of doing the work. As soon as I say it, they just nod and get back to work. Story 69. Isn't it odd that the human mind doesn't register the fact that there was used twice each time in this sentence? Story 70. If I need to remember to do something important in the morning, the night before I put something obviously out of place. When I wake up and have to fix whatever I did, I immediately recall what I need to do. Story 71. Let's flip a coin. Take out coin. All right, heads I win, tails you lose. Don't give them time to think. They heard heads and tails, win and lose. But don't immediately think about which one was attached to which. Flip, show it to them, and say exactly what you said. Heads, I win, or tails, you lose. Story 72. Stare at their mouth with a quizzical look. 910, they will leave in less than a minute to go find a mirror. When they come back, wait a minute or two, then stare again. Story 73. The power of a strong emotional frame. We humans have these neat things called mirror neurons. So when two people with clashing emotions are together, the one with the stronger emotions eventually spreads it. I use this to calm down someone who's upset. I listen to their problems and talk to them calmly, and eventually their own sense of calm is restored. Story 74. I read this in a CIA tips book years ago. If you think you are being watched or followed, look at your watch. It is the natural reaction for the suspect person to look at theirs. I've played this game for years in my office. Works pretty well. Story 75. I have several humans are stupid creatures. 1. When trying to hook up with someone and you don't know if they're interested in you, do the flirting triangle. If their body language shows interest, you're in. If not, you're not. Simple as that. No more time partied too hard. 2. When trying to bring out chaos from a group, listen intently, then drop a statement that agrees with both parties, but at the same time, gives a lot of room to argument. Can't give any example. Works by a case-by-case basis. Fun is guaranteed. Story 76. If you're in a room With lots of foot tappers and table drummers, you can get them all on the same beat if you just pound 1, 2, 3, 4 on the floor with your foot. Mostly works because if you persist, they will subconsciously notice it does not sound right in their head, so they will fix it by adjusting accordingly. Story 77. This weirdly worked. Have someone use their index finger and slowly get them to put it towards the back of their throat until they find their get reflex, then ask them to stop. Then have them squeeze their right hand in a first and use their left hand to pinch their thumb and count out loud to 30. Now have them find their get reflex. It's somehow improved massively. Give it a go yourself. Source, somewhere on the internet sometime. Story 78. Setting clocks in the house 3-6 minutes fast. Even though I know they're fast, it still makes me move faster and get out the door on time. Story 79. Act as if you belong, wherever it is you're not supposed to be. You'd be surprised how far that can get you. Story 80. Being able to hold eye contact longer than the other person in a social situation can demonstrate your social prowess. Story 81. My sister and I have a fun game at big gatherings, concerts for example. Turn around and wave away from the stage. A lot of people in your vicinity will turn towards the area you are waving to. I don't know what they are expecting. They don't know us. They aren't going to know the person we are waving to, but you can still expect a good 5-10 people look the direction of your wave. I guess it's more a people-watching deal than psych trick, but still. Story 82. Not a trick, but modesty. If you want people to like you, never build yourself up, but talk down about yourself and show you are a cool guy. Story 83. Give someone a small gift as a first interaction, and they are more likely to accept orders or do favors for you in the future. Some candy, invitation for lunch. 50 Shades use this when the girl accepts a pencil from the guy when they first meet. Story 84. Ask leading questions until the person you are talking to comes to the conclusion you want them to come to. It's a way of mentally cornering someone into a realization that they think is of their own reasoning. It's hard to explain, but you essentially want the other person to come to an aha moment that you wanted them to, regardless of whether or not you are actually right in your belief. This doesn't work if the person is smarter than you, because you cannot predict what answers they will give you. This can also be used for both good and bad reasons. Story 85. Teacher here. My favorite trick. Jimmy, are you not doing your assignment because you don't want to? Lower voice volume significantly or because you can't. Can't do it condescendingly, of course, but it works as sort of a mental checkmate. Reminds him to get back on task without nagging. And generally, the kids are antsy to show me how well they can do it because they don't want me to think they don't understand. A few times, it has opened up dialogue about a legitimate problem I hadn't foreseen with the assignment. Example, Jimmy replies, I could do it if I knew what page the reading is on, but you didn't write it on the board or whatever. I still consider this a win for the both of us, as then he gets on task and I correct the problem. I always make sure not to harp about how he should have just asked. Story 86. If I don't want to do something and there is 2 tasks at hand, like when I worked in fast food, ask your coworker, do you want to clean the bathroom? Make a nasty face, I want to because I check my phone and it's so easy. Or sweep the floor, normal face, I don't want to, and it's much more work. Whichever one you want to do, make a disgusted jerk face when you ask it. 910, they won't do it, and you'll get the easy task. Story 87. Not the most interesting of tricks, but if you're in a conversation with somebody and want more details from them, stay quiet and maintain eye contact. People dislike silence and will generally keep talking. I use it all the time at work, car sales, and it works great if a customer doesn't want to tell you something. Story 88. My boyfriend, who works in a kids' amusement park, pointed out that if you maintain eye contact with little kids for long enough, they'll forget what they're doing and will usually drop whatever they're holding. He used to see how many kids he could get to drop their French fries ice cream candy in one day. Terrible, but amusing for minimum wage employees. Story 89. 2 of my brothers worked at a racquetball club one summer. Brother A was better than Brother B because A had worked there longer. After closing, sometimes they'd play a bit. Brother B quickly discovered to smash the ball into the back of Brother A early on. Then A would spend the rest of the game looking over his shoulder and trying to get out of B's way. Story 90. Whenever I need to get special assistance from store employees, I always play the card that my pregnant wife asked me to do this, and she's very hormonally emotional. I come off as affable and friendly and never try to make unfair demands. Guy employees want to help you because they feel the pain of impending female hormones. The ladies like to help because they either think it's sweet that I'm trying so hard to get things taken care of or just out of sense of sisterhood. I discovered this trick when my wife was pregnant. She hasn't been physically pregnant in nearly 9 years, but she has remained pregnant every time I've had to do something at the store. Turk. Story 91. Illusion of choice. Give someone a choice of 2 options. You decide what the choice means. Most people have no idea it's happening. Story 92. When meeting somebody new, after learning their name, repeat it back to them while looking at them. Not only does it make you seem more interested in them as a person, but it helps your brain make that connection between the face and the name. Story 93. Testing somebody's religion. When you have a few friends together, offer them $1 to buy their soul. See if they are secure enough to get a free $1. If you can afford it, offer them more. Story 94. Having some fun with my ex-girlfriend in a high school psychology course, I decided to classically condition her. Every time I asked her if she would like a sip from my water bottle, I would make a kish noise with my mouth. Eventually, it got to the point where I could make the noise and she would hold out her hand. I confronted her about it and she had no idea. We both had a good laugh about that one. It was a lot like that Office episode. Story 95. Clipboards, a name tag on a lanyard, and business casual attire allow you to get away with quite a bit. They imply some sort of workplace importance or authority. I've walked right into Legoland, Disneyland, and a couple of movies without admission by feigning confidence and having busy body language. Turnstile employees, particularly during the summer, are seasonal and just out of high school. It's a lot of people's first job and they tend to think everyone is their boss. Manipulative, yes, but very useful. Story 96. If someone has a hiccup, ask the person if she has seen a rabbit recently. It works almost every time to get rid of the hiccups. Story 97. 2, but really it's 1. You just mimic people in a way. If you want them to like you, buy your product, whatever, you match their body language, mannerisms, maybe use slang that they use. If you want to piss someone off, make them angry, whatever, do the opposite. Someone goes into great length about something, respond with talking like an idiot, or maybe just one word. I've seen a couple comments in here on how to piss someone off, but they only work on stupid people. This shoot works on smart people too. It's pretty rare to come across someone this doesn't work on. Story 98. I always clasp my hands behind my back while I'm waiting, no matter what. That posture suggests the person is relaxed and patient, and it makes people feel less nervous and self-conscious. It also diverts attention away from you. As a people watcher, this is ideal for me. Story 99. See someone look at their watch or their phone to check the time. Ask them 10 seconds later, they will have to check again. Story 100. If you want to ask someone a question that may seem odd, try asking a more normal-sounding question with similar words or similar topic to ease into the weird question. Story 101. When talking to someone, fold your arms. If they're actually listening, they'll probably fold their arms too. Story 102. If you're trying to figure out if someone is staring at you, yawn and see if they yawn too. It's very hard not to yawn when the person you're intently watching does so. Story 103. High-vis jacket, a hard hat, and carry a clipboard, and wander unchallenged through building sites. Answer. I walked into the Pentagon once to prove the power of a clipboard. This was 1973, so it was before all the heightened security and shoot, but it was still easy. I was drinking with my friends and somehow the subject of clipboards came up. I went on about how powerful they were. We were all 19 or so and worked in the sub-basement. Anyway, I bet them I could walk in without showing anyone a badge at the entrance of their choice. The next day, I grabbed a clipboard and headed in. I just walked slowly, looking up, shaking my head like I didn't like what I was seeing, and making notes on the clipboard. Got to the badge checkpoint, turned around and looked back and up at the ceiling, muttered, "Oh, shoot," under my breath, walked right in looking up. No one asked for a badge. Friends and I walked out another entrance. Drank free that day. Story 104. One that I always thought was fun. If you have a hard time choosing between 2 options, ask a friend to flip a coin. By the time they flip it, you already know what you want and will be disappointed, happy with the result. Story 105. Room full of strangers? Ask someone nearby for a small favor. Could plug in this cable for me? Can I borrow a pen, CL? It works kind of like an icebreaker, and since it is a small and insignificant favor, they'll be unlikely to refuse or harbor feelings like, "You owe me now." Story 106. If you hand something to someone, let's say an empty bottle, while talking about something else, they will just take it. After a few seconds, they'll realize that they've been given something useless. Story 107. If you're asking someone to do something for you in an email, finish it with thank you in advance. Story 108. If you have a song stuck in your head, just listen to the whole song from beginning to end. Works every time. Story 109. Initially put this in a reply to someone else, but it's a good enough trick to be standalone, I think. For kids under 5, if they're heading to tantrum mode, I find it incredibly effective to get on their level. Look them in the eye, hold their hands or forearms lightly when doing so, and ask, why are you crying? Half the time they calm down and say they don't know. The other times they can give you a reason, and you can say, let's fix this problem. Very few times will this not work. Story 110. I used to play pool as a teenager. If I thought I was losing, I would compliment the player just as he was approaching the table, then ask, do you inhale or exhale before you make your shot? This would always mess him up for the next few shots. Story 111. Try to make eye contact with the teacher after they turn away from writing on the board, mostly from self-experience, but teachers tend to like you more if you can make it apparent that you're interested paying attention in class. Story 112. Learning to recognize logical fallacies when arguing with someone, people who can never be wrong. Countering or calling them out based on their argument style is the best way to show them that you're not going to fall for their bullshit. Story 113. When you are getting too emotional and can't show your emotions, take very short breaths very quickly, like in Kapalbhati by Ramdev. Emotional reaction will subside. When you have to go to an important meeting and you are nervous while waiting, take deep breaths and focus on your breathing. The more you look at the room, door, people coming in, going out, you will become more and more nervous. I can't tell you how many times I've benefited because of this technique. Story 114. At least in the US, when talking to a man, square your shoulders up with his, point your nipples at his. Unless he's arguing with you, he will turn away from you. Story 115. If someone is bothering you at your desk too often, continue the conversation but get up and walk them back to their desk. Had a boss who was a guru at this. You'd be back at your desk wondering how the fudge you got there. Story 116. This will probably get lost, but how to stop a bad mood your partner spouse is in during an argument. Ask them simple questions about what they are annoyed with, but always phrase it so that the answer is a simple yes. Get them to say yes 6 times in a row, and they will be diffused and get out of the mood they're in. E.g., is something annoying you? Yes. Is it an important thing? Yes. Wouldn't it be nicer for both of us if you told me what it is so we can sort it out? Yes. We'd all be much happier then, wouldn't we? Yes. Then we can do. Doesn't that sound good? Yes, it does, etc. Hey presto, partner out of their annoying mood. It sounds patronizing written out, but it works. Even if they don't actually say yes, but think the answer, it still works. Story 117. If you want something from someone, ask it over the top first. Like money, if you need 100, ask for 200. And then ask, how about just 100? Story 118. This isn't the best, but just interesting. Companies offering a small, medium, or large option. People tend to always go to the medium or large, regardless of value, because they don't want to only get a small. Story 119. I answer phones all day taking orders, and I used to struggle with people staying on the line as if waiting for me to tell, just kidding. After I told them we didn't have the part they wanted in stock, I kept asking my managers what to say, and they said, don't say anything. So I started being silent after I said, we don't have it, but we can order it. Then they eventually talk to themselves about it and say, oh, well, thanks for your help, and hang up. Story 120. Mine, when someone's going to do something stupid or something where I know they'll hurt themselves, I say word for word, okay, but I'm not driving you to the hospital. Works like a charm. Story 121. Try and twirl your right finger forwards and your left backwards. Take some practice, but once you got it for life. Story 122. People love saying no and dislike saying yes. With no, you have power. Yes is a loss. Get people to say no and they're more pliable. Even if it's, let me ask you this, is it ridiculous for me to think something that isn't ridiculous? Story 123. I have a lot of them. While on a date, be observant over how he is sitting. If he mirrors your body language, that's a sign that he really likes you. Same if he stares at your lips. If you're feeling bad, start every day by smiling in the mirror. If you need to win an argument, pretend to be on their side, but inject your side into their argument. Only works if you're not directly opposing each other. Physical touch is the best sales trick besides the smile. Story 124. Spread the word that you complained about something someone did wrong to the boss to everyone, but the person in question, even though you didn't, that person will speak to the boss making excuses about said thing and confessing the wrong did in the process without realizing it. I call it social engineering. Story 125. Now that I use debit NFC, this doesn't work. However, I used to keep several 2 bills in my pocket. I would always pay with X2. It didn't matter how often I was there, even months apart, they would remember me. If I needed a little something extra or special, ding, this person is a regular. I'm on it. NBS. As a side note, a group of dance friends I visited a Mediterranean restaurant where a belly dancer came out, took tips in her waistband. As I said, we were all dancers, so of course we tipped her. BSP. After she was done, she came back around, asked if we had given her the 2. I stated I did. That years later I learned patrons at one of the local strip clubs uses 2 bills instead of 1 bills for the dancers. NBSP, I do still carry a few 2 bills to throw into the tip for waitstaff for the reason I first started doing this way back when. However, my collection of 2 bills has grown into the thousands. I even have an uncut sheet. Not hard to come by. But, story 126. If someone is experiencing hiccups, ask them about the last time they saw a white horse. Really drive it home that they need to give you an answer about the last time they saw one. They'll ask if seeing it on TV counts, if it had to be completely white, etc. Do this for a couple minutes and 9.510 their hiccups will be gone. Edit. You can do this with any obscure thing, but the main point is for it to be obscure enough to prevent a quick answer. Story 127. Listen more than you speak. The more you let them talk, the more they expose their position, and the weaker their point becomes because they will add useless information. Story 128. If someone you know has a problem that you think he should consider solving, present it to him as your own or your other friend's problem and ask him to advise you. It's up to you if you are going to tell him what you did at the end, or are you going to leave him think this trough. This technique lets people of their defense mechanisms and depersonalizes the problem so that he can look at himself from a different perspective. Story 129. This is more fun than anything, but say no pun intended after a normal sentence to make your friends think they don't get a joke. Story 130. Whenever someone would say, guess what to me, I always respond with who. Usually they start their sentence and then get confused halfway through and thus stop. Story 131. I teach at an elementary school. Most has been for 2nd and 3rd grade. And when a kid says, I don't feel good, I tell them to time it and tell me when they feel better. My grandma taught me this trick, and at first they look at you like you're nuts. Sometimes they come back a few minutes later and say they still don't feel well. And I say, well, how long has it been? Remember, I want you to tell me only when you feel better. 99 of the time, they're all better within 10 minutes. Haha. Story 132. I start singing a song in front of someone and stop abruptly so that they're forced to either finish it or have the song stuck in their head the rest of the day. Story 133. If the person you're speaking to crosses his arms, defensive posture, cross yours. A minute later, uncross your arms. He will do the same and unconsciously become more receptive. Story 134. When dealing with customers and they have to wait for something, your computer, the customers ahead of them, you, whatever, instead of saying sorry for the wait, say thanks for your patience. This makes them feel good and also encourages them to be more patient if something else happens to slow down the transaction. The computer freezes yet again, etc. Story 135. Instead of saying a firm or hard yes or no, especially in a work situation or negotiations, phrase your response with a yes, but outline some conditions, or a no, and provide some solutions. This will help interpret why you responded in a specific way and give context to the conversation. You will also not come across like an impulsive male body part. This is also how intelligent and rational conversations are had. Story 136. If somebody is really distracted talking to a person, they will give you whatever they are holding at the moment without asking. When my mother recently was in a deep conversation with my grandma, she just gave me her car keys when I held out my hand to reach for them. Later, she was searching all around the house for her keys, and I told her she's been the victim of that. Story 137. Once in high school, I really liked this girl, and she knew because I made it kind of obvious. And high school gossip didn't help either. She started being cold towards me, ignoring me and such, at times even being rude. That attitude people get when they're next to someone that they know likes them but have no feelings for in return. It was sad because we'd hang out a lot and nothing would be weird, but then it wasn't the same, so I decided to do something that I thought would help in the long run. For some reason, my logic was, if I suddenly started ignoring her, maybe she would start longing for contact with me to the point that her brain would interpret it as having feelings for me. After a few weeks, her attitude completely changed. She would ask me to go places with her or try to talk to me. Before, when asked about it, she would flatly say no about liking me, but now, so I was told, she would even blush when saying yes. My plan worked beautifully. However, the irony is, I stuck too much to my plan that I just stopped liking her. Story 138. Wait until someone is talking and you can hand them anything. My coworker would do this to me, and the next thing I know, I have a handful of his trash. Story 139. When I was a teenager, I decided that I wanted to cut high fructose corn syrup out of my diet. The biggest hurdle for me here was soda, and I decided to try using reverse psychology on the problem. I never forced myself to stop drinking soda. Whenever I drank it, I thought about every gross soda fact, whether it was true or not. I thought about how gross and unnatural the color was. I imagined the damage it could do to my stomach lining, considering that it stings to hold it in your mouth too long. I'm sure I had other lines I used, but I can't remember right now. I kept ordering soda, and over time it became less and less appealing until I suddenly realized that I didn't want to drink it anymore. It's been over a decade since then, and I still don't drink soda. It kind of grosses me out. I can count the number of times I've drank soda in the last 10 years on one, maybe two hands. Story 140, get other people invested in helping me solve a problem and show confidence in them that they can. An example would be when having to deal with customer service. I always start off with, we have a problem. Now it's not just my problem, it's also theirs. Then I add with full confidence, and I know you're just the right person to fix it. If they give their name, use it. People love to solve problems. You just need to get them invested in the problem. Works nearly all the time. Story 141. When speaking, people tend to subconsciously place a stronger emphasis on words which mean more to them. Their voices will pitch up just a bit, just enough to notice when speaking the name of something, someone important to them. For example, if you ask a friend to list names of people they know, their spouse's or crush's name will probably be said more strongly than the other names. You can learn a lot about a person just listening to how they pitch the words they say. Story 142. Parents can get kids to do what they want by offering a choice rather than issuing an order. Example, you want your child to put on some socks. Don't say, put on your socks now. We need to leave soon. Instead say, do you want to put on your green socks or the blue ones? Children, especially younger ones, get caught up in deciding a favorite option and blindly do it in situations where an outright order instruction would be resisted. Story 143. Foot in the door technique works wonders. If you want something, ask for much more than what you think you'll get, so that when you offer settling for what you actually want, you get it. Within reason, obviously. For instance, let's say you make 10 an hour and you want to make 11. Go to your boss and formally ask for a raise to $15, $16. He'll probably say no. Then you would say, okay, that's reasonable. Would you consider 11? And you're a lot more likely to get that. Nothing is perfect, but it increases your chances greatly. I wish I could quote the studies, but there have been plenty on this subject. Story 144. Using the word willing when asking someone to do something, i.e., would you be willing to help me paint my fence? It changes the terms of the favor or task in their minds, and it becomes more about their character somehow. They'll much more likely do it because it seems like it's on their terms. Story 145. Whenever you're asking for something, use the word because. For example, instead of say, may I please use the photocopier before you? Say, may I please use the photocopier before you because I need to photocopy something. It triples your success rate even if there is no real reason at all, as shown in the example. Answer. That's one of the fundamental things we do with agile methods in programming. When a person writes a user story, they have to put in because or so that to explain why we're doing something. It makes a huge difference in gauging priorities and understanding where a user is coming from. For example, this row of numbers should be red versus this row of numbers should be red because the auditors need to quickly find negatives in our cash flow. Story 146. If you need to remember to do something, put something really out of place somewhere. For example, you need to phone someone in the morning. Before you go to bed, turn a chair upside down or put your shoes in the middle of the room. When you see them, you will know to do that thing. Don't move it until you have done what you needed to remember. Story 147. When I worked at a burger joint, I had to upsell to get people to buy cheese. At first I asked, would you like cheese on that? But after a while switched to, what kind of cheese would you like? And my cheese sales went up like 400, they loved me. Story 148. If you need to cross a busy road, act like you have a hurt leg, especially if you are male, and you're trying to go across as fast as you can. People go from swerve to miss this fudge idiot to, oh my gosh, I better slow down to let him cross. Story 149. Look at the lips of a girl when she's talking at specific moments for 2-3 seconds for some instances, and she will unfailingly think or dream of having intimacy with you. Story 150. When working retail, I noticed that if I asked people whether they needed a bag, they almost always said no. If I asked if they wanted a bag, they invariably said yes. Story 151. Not super psychology-based, but still super fun. Mention gaslighting in a conversation. Hopefully your mate replies, "What's that?" So then you say, "I already told you last time you met." Look up gaslighting. It's great fun. Story 152. I worked in sales for a bit, and they called it the Sullivan nod in the training. It's astonishing how much it works. Story 153. If you know you're going to have to walk past those people who stand there and hand out flyers to sell you shoot, they know darn well no one wants. Try to muster the best resting meanie face you can, or look as pissed off, annoyed as possible whilst you're walking past. No one wants to approach someone they can clearly see is in a bad mood. Story 154. If you sniff your wrist and then ask someone to also smell it, they are far more likely to comply than if you sniff your pointer and index fingers and then ask them to. Yeah, I don't have any good Jedi mind tricks. Thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. If you'd like to see more content like this, you might be interested to know that I've created another channel with a similar theme, especially for those of you who enjoy what I do. I'll leave a link in the description, and I hope to see you there. Take care.